Presented by McDonald's of Glasgow, it's time for the Brown Sports Bag. From the heart of the Barrens, a weekly local sports machine. Alongside John Butler, here's your host, James Brown.
All right, John, we're back again this week. Have you ever seen the movie The Doors?
I've not seen the movie The Doors.
Well,
I take it's about the Doors.
Yeah, well, it's completely irrelevant to the rest of the conversation of this show, but every time I grab this microphone like this with two hands and I think I'm about to sing at a concert or whatever, I envision a scene from The Doors. I think when he's doing the end, it's kind of a dumb scene, but nonetheless, it's I just always think about singing, not talking.
Go ahead, crank it out.
Well, the problem is I can't sing.
Okay.
So that's why it doesn't happen. People's ears will bleed. They will crash their cars.
You don't think it will help our audience?
No, it'll immediately go to zero or maybe even
right.
negatives.
Okay.
But we're going to start this show this week getting to talk about a thing that we got to close out the show last week. You had to miss until like the last few minutes. We got about 5 minutes kind of discuss Calipari leaving Kentucky and going to Arkansas, just in brief. But of course, since then, we went through the whole coaching carousel situation of who it would be and who it would not be, and I think maybe many Kentucky fans were stressed by the fact that the people they wanted kept saying no, or maybe they weren't even really contacted. Billy Donovan, Dan Hurley, Scott Drew, Nate Oates, all those guys that were at the top of the list, and then they wound up with Mark Pope. And I knew who Mark Pope was as a player. I honestly did not know he was even coaching college basketball. I mean,
Really?
Well, it's one of those things like, I guess at the time when he was playing in Kentucky, I'm in Mississippi. So
Yeah.
He's a guy on a Kentucky basketball team. And down there, it's Ole Miss and Mississippi State just getting run over by Kentucky pretty much every year. So the only thing that those players register is that they played at Kentucky. You don't really pay attention to them after that point in life, unless they're, some of the guys who played in the NBA, that kind of thing. But which he did, and I actually forgot he was on that Pacers team there in the late 80s, late 90s period. But anyway, it just didn't really register to me on the coaching side of things. It's when they announced it, for a moment I was like Mark Pope, and then I was like, oh, that guy who played for Kentucky, played for Pitino, was on those really good teams, and but I was kind of interested in the reaction of fans because they're way down in the dumps. And I guess for them, many of them, it felt like, well, we got the last guy available to us or something like that. But I think his press conferences and the things he said since then has maybe turned around that feeling.
Yeah, I mean, I think both Louisville and Kentucky learned a valuable lesson right now, and that's that with NIL and the transfer portal and the amount of money coaches are making everywhere right now, that it's not as easy just to go out and get who you want.
Yeah.
I mean, I was surprised that Louisville ended up getting Pat Kelsey.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't think he was at the top of their list at the start.
No.
And basically it's the same people that both Louisville and Kentucky wanted, absent maybe Hurley.
Right.
Scott Drew was the one that was number one for both Louisville and Kentucky, and in fact, his family got on a plane to go to Kentucky, and he turned them down, and I think Nate Oates turned both of them down as well.
Mm-hmm.
So it's trying to get one. It's a little bit different than it was 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah.
It's you just can't go get who you want. You got to find somebody who wants the job as well.
Mm-hmm.
And, yeah, Mark Pope for Kentucky was, I think it's fair to say, that was not the number one choice in any way. I mean, Billy Donovan, they didn't want to wait on Billy Donovan.
Which I thought was, I didn't think Billy Donovan was going to be a great choice to start with.
I don't think he said no. He just said he would talk about it once his season's over, which
right.
We don't know when that could actually be Tuesday.
And they couldn't wait that long.
That's right. So you have, and Scott Drew, Hurley, Oates. I think they made a inquiry into Brad Stevens, which I don't blame them, and the former Villanova
Jay Wright.
Yeah. So they tried those. I don't guess anybody tried the Gonzaga coach. He's been tried before, Mark Few. So I don't think Mark Pope was on the radar, and he did surprise me, to be honest with you. And but with he and the Louisville coach Kelsey, you never know. I think the deal with Pope, his teams at BYU were really good offensively.
Yeah.
he clearly wants the job. He said he would have walked from Provo or Salt Lake City, wherever, at BYU for the job. He wants the job.
Right.
Pat Kelsey wanted the job. So, you got two guys at both programs who wanted the job.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, Pope was a former player. Those former players are always well-liked at first.
Yeah.
I mean, Kenny Payne is the latest. Okay, I mean, there's a lot of former players who get those jobs. Chris Mullins at St. John's.
Oh, yeah.
Patrick Ewing at Georgetown.
Yeah.
Those are always popular at first.
Uh-huh.
And Pope had a great press conference yesterday. I don't know what it means when 20,000 people come to a press conference. They had close to 20,000 people, and I can't get my mind around.
It would seem to suggest
that just
anything
seems
Kentucky
odd.
But when it comes to men's basketball, 20,000 people are going to show up no matter what the results are.
I mean, I wouldn't walk across the street to a press conference, and right now everybody's in love with him. Right now, they were at first. I think a lot of people were leery. That's not kind of exactly the marquee. Mm-hmm. But now, he's clearly has won the fan base over. He had a great press conference. He's all in on Kentucky, and of course he was roommates with Jeff
Shepard, Reed's dad.
Reed's dad too, and so you have that maybe hope of keeping Shepard because of that connection. Mm-hmm. But I reminded a Kentucky friend of mine yesterday. He hasn't lost a game yet.
That's right.
And we'll see. Do I think he can coach? I do. I mean, I've watched BYU play, and this past year they were in the Big 12, which was a big improvement from where they were, and they did quite well. He still has never won an NCAA tournament game at BYU, and he was, I think,
Utah
Valley before that, which is a really small D1 school. So he hasn't done that, but he's got the enthusiasm. He said the right things. The key with both Pat Kelsey at Louisville and with Mark Pope is, can they recruit?
Yeah.
Will they get – it's kind of like my first gut instinct will be he is not going to get the same type of players that Cal got, but he may be a better coach.
Well,
it's one of those deals. And will people turn on him if he's not in the Final Four in the next 3 or 4 years? Probably will.
Yeah.
I mean, he's got to show some type of but his love for Kentucky is very apparent. Mm-hmm. He's already connected back with some of the former players. He's already connected with Rick Pitino. Was glowing about him.
Yeah, to me, that was a really awesome thing.
It was an awesome thing. I wish they got Pitino.
Right.
Of course, I wish Louisville got Pitino too.
Yeah.
But it was, he's clearly going to get to sport. Looks like a lot of the donors who left Cal are back for this NIL, whatever the. Listen,
money.
I can't stand. I like the fact that players can get money for advertising, like a Gatorade money, shoe money. If you sell your jersey, I'm all into that. But just having a collective just to hand money over to an athlete just drives it. Almost sickens me, to be honest with you.
This is the part, and I think I was reading about this, that these institutions kind of getting involved in the NIL money and saying we have this NIL money foundation, so to speak, is the thing that I think is going to eventually run afoul of the court system in Congress when it comes to amateurism. And that.
Well,
that's what I've been reading. That people are concerned about that part.
I just don't like handing money over. Just play on my team, please. I mean, it's just. The money can be used, and tuition is so high anyway, and it just seems like there's just so many better resources that people's money can go to. People can do whatever they want to with their money, but just handing it over to get a player.
John, think about this for a minute.
That's just I can't wrap my mind around why that's happening.
How many non-men's basketball students, and they may play another sport. How many of their tuitions could be paid for with a $5 million foundation?
I know. You're right.
That's the part where we're going to start getting into some pretty sketchy ground. I do believe when people really start filing lawsuits in pursuit of these things, because it will come. There will be your average students out there saying, "But I'm paying all this money to institutions, and these people are got a scholarship plus, and I know that they bring value to the institution, but what if I go out and I'm a rocket scientist? What kind of value did I bring to the institution?
Yeah, I know. I'm just not in favor of any of that stuff.
That's kind of a sidebar,
Yeah,
because
it is.
this is the game we're playing right now.
It's the
This is
game we're
bottom
playing.
line. And
It will break. It will fall apart.
Yes, it will.
It's going to fall apart. But as of right now, I'm happy for Mark Pope because, I mean, it's a great opportunity for him.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of these deals where I'm happy for a while. Can he handle it? You know, he said he can. You know, he says he understands the expectations and all that stuff. But man, when that wave turns, it turns.
Yeah.
And but you know, he would not have been my top choice. But regardless of whether he's your top choice or not, is he good enough? We'll see. And the name of the game right now is getting players, and that's the same for Louisville with Pat Kelsey. Pat Kelsey will do better than Kenny Payne. I am 100% confident in that one.
Well, he'll actually bring players in, and I guess they'll play.
They will be better coached and so forth. Louisville will get better. The question is, can Kentucky get better? I mean, I don't think they're going to get the players, but can they have a little bit more success in the SEC tournament and more recent success in the NCAA tournament? We'll see. I hope they do.
You know, it's going to be an interesting situation because we're going to go from big-name players who are big prospects coming into Kentucky, sticking around for a year, and then jetting out of there for
It's going to be
pros,
different.
and maybe some transfers we're leaking in. It's going to be probably not as many of those high school players. It might be a lot more of the transfer players who played at, you know, maybe out of Utah Valley, a school that we don't know about, but they're having a big season there, and they'll come to Kentucky, as we see happening right now at like we saw at UConn, and we saw at North Carolina State, and some of these programs that were in the Final Four this year. This is basically how they were built, that mixture of transfers and freshmen, I guess is how it worked out. North Carolina State's kind of the total exception to that. It's all older players. But anyway, we're going to see if the fans who – at the end of Cal's run, we're like, we don't care who's in the NBA. We care about what we're winning now.
Right, which I don't blame them.
No, I mean, hey, I'm a Kentucky fan. I'm not a fan of that player. You know, I may never watch the NBA.
That's correct.
So I don't really care what they do in their professional lives. I care what they do at the University of Kentucky if I'm a Kentucky fan. So Pope's not going to bring in those players because that's not what his game is, so to speak. That's not what he did at BYU. That's not what he did at Utah Valley, obviously.
Well, he's got a different brand to recruit with.
He does,
right.
Which means he can get some of those prospects, but secondarily, going back to that bigger brand, is better transfers, period, coming out of some of these smaller schools.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, and so we're going to see players. You may still not know their names because they weren't there last year, but we're going to see what kind of elevation that they have, you know, and how I guess the biggest thing for him is getting the players, and then is he, like Danny Hurley, capable of meshing them all together extremely well? That's what Danny Hurley's success has been. He brings in the players, but then he's able to build a program and say, you know, this is what we do, this is what you do well, but he's able to get these guys who come from all different areas to mesh together and play together. I mean, that's why they're defending national champions twice now. And so that's going to be the trick for him is can he bring them in, and then can he get them to play together? And that's really going to be the trick for Kelsey too, is can he bring in these players and can he get them to play together? That seems to be the biggest thing of success right now if you want to make a run in the NCAA tournament.
It is, and the thing that I think that we don't know, and I'm talking about we, the general public, including me, and people that are not on the inside, is I just don't know what the influence of the NIL money is. I don't know. I just hear what coaches say, that when they go recruit somebody and they sit down with them and their parents, that's either the first or the second thing that's brought up is how much money can I get. Yeah. So, I mean, it's not necessarily about come to UK because we are UK, and it's not about your practice facilities anymore. That used to be a big draw, but it's not about that anymore. I think people would go to a barn if they got paid enough.
Well, but on the flip side of that particular argument, as you look at UConn, there's no way that they have the bankrolled NIL of some of these other programs that of these coaches who are making these comments. I don't think Danny Hurley made that comment.
I don't know.
I mean, I think, you know, he was asked about that kind of stuff, and he said, you know, it's having an influence, but obviously part of his pitch is come here and win.
What I'm saying is I don't know exactly how that works.
Oh yeah, okay.
That's the underlying deal. I don't know how much it works, how much it takes, and so forth. But evidently, it's a huge factor in a lot of players' decision. Yeah,
I would say that is the case, and certainly these high-end prospects, the ones that have maybe professional aspirations and that kind of stuff, who are going to make a stop in college for a year, that would seem to be a deal.
Yep.
But on the women's side, let's talk about this real quick. We saw that Haley Van Lith is going to leave LSU, right?
Sorry, already left.
Already left. All right. So did she get more money to come to LSU than she had at Louisville? I think so. Mm-hmm. Obviously, that wasn't in the end the thing that she thought motivated her, but apparently it didn't. Not being able to actually be a standout player on a team, maybe was the thing that she didn't realize was her real motivation.
Didn't know it till she got there, though.
Right. I mean, because she never had to think about it at Louisville. She was always the star and got some of the money. She got more money to go to LSU, and now maybe it's all about, I want to have an opportunity to show what I can do instead of getting, abused by Caitlin Clark in the national title game because I can't defend her. So
shouldn't have ever been on her.
No,
I mean, it's not her fault.
No, it wasn't.
That's the problem. It just why Kim Mulkey, who's obviously a great coach, why she would put her out there in front of to guard her for as many minutes. I don't understand it, to be honest with you. That was not fair to her. There were several other players that she could have guarded, and I still to this day do not understand the logic of that.
You know what? When I saw that at the start of that game, I thought about Larry Bird's comment in the 80s whenever they were playing the 76ers, and Charles Barkley's told this story before, and they had some dude guarding him, and Larry Bird said, if you let that guy guard me, I'm going to kill you. Mm-hmm. And I thought about that when that game started. I was like, that's exactly what Caitlin Clark was thinking to herself. Thank you for putting her on me because I'm about to torch you.
Right.
Haley Van Lith is obviously a very good offensive player, but she's not a good defensive player, and I did feel bad for her because she was being asked to do something she's incapable of doing.
That's correct.
But anyway, that's kind of a sidebar going back to this. What does the money mean? Maybe the money means a lot if you're going to be there for a short period of time and you're trying to get as much money as you possibly can. But if you plan on playing a college career of some sort, that money may not mean as much as you go along as it does to start with. So you may be able to use that NIL money to get those big name recruits that you think that you can't recruit by yourself, so to speak, as a coach. But at some point in time, the winning is also, I think, or the environment of the program is going to have an impact on who's still there and the actual success down the line.
I agree with that.
All right. Anything else on this college basketball stuff before we get out of this segment?
No, I mean it's a lot of turnover, and not even including Western Kentucky.
Right. Yes.
The three big changes in men's basketball from Western and Louisville and Kentucky, and then you throw in Kentucky women too. Mm-hmm. So that's 4.
Yeah. A lot of turnover. And I thought WKU. I thought it was interesting the way they handled their hire because they basically They elevated the guy who was on the bench, Plona.
Must have been really impressive. He compared him because he's only been on the bench with him 1 year.
Yeah.
But the AD compared him to when Jeff Brom was on the staff of Bobby Petrino at Western. He just knew it when he watched him that he was going to be a successful head coach. So he's kind of going on his gut and feel, and we'll see how that works out.
Interesting too on Plona. He was coaching at the junior college ranks before.
Very successfully.
Very successful. There's nothing quite like coaching at that level because you're only going to have peak folks at the max 2 years. So you are constantly a person who's trying to bring in players.
No different than coaching Division I today.
Yeah, exactly.
1 or 2 years at the most.
Yeah, I mean it may be the better training ground than anything else now that we look at it because you have that experience of having to constantly recruit your players and players to come in there. Plus, you're trying to get them to come to a junior college most of the time in the middle of nowhere. Most of the ones that are really good are in the middle of nowhere. There's not really many in big cities and that kind of stuff. So you're trying to get people to buy in to come to the farmland and play basketball and do nothing else, basically. Yeah. All right, this is Brown Sports Bag presented by McDonald's of Glasgow. We'll be right back.
Presented by McDonald's of Glasgow, it's back to the studio with James and John, the Brown Sports Bag.
All right, John. Despite all the weather last week, especially Tuesday through Thursday, we did end up with some baseball and softball games played, although we were supposed to have a couple of track meets, and they both got canceled. Barron's track meet, they're doing it today.
Well, they got a great day to run today.
Yes, it's beautiful. And I don't know when Glasgow's going to make up their track meet. Anyway, but on the baseball front, Barron ended up playing 3 games. I think they had 4 on the schedule originally, so only one of them ended up really getting canceled, I think.
Yeah,
I take it back. They only had the 3 on the schedule, I believe.
They beat Bowling Green 5-3. That was a great win for them on Monday.
Yeah, Bowling Green's first loss of the season.
Joey Myers, who's pitching really well, he went, I think, 5 1/3, gave up 2 runs, and Skylar Potter came in and gave up no runs and got the save.
Yeah.
So that was a good performance against a good Bowling Green team.
They've proved to be a good combo. That's what won them the district last year.
Yeah, and beat Monroe 11-2, and then lost shootout to Logan County, I think, last Saturday maybe 10-9.
Yeah, it was that win against Bowling Green was an impressive win because Joey pitched well. I think they got a home run from Jackson Reese in that game, which proved to be the insurance runs on that. Bowling Green had been. I don't know if they were ranked number 1. I think they were number 1 in the RPI in the state, but they were 16-0, and they were in the top 25, maybe about 8 or so. If you look at Barron's schedule, I mean, they barely lost to Taylor County. I think they're number 4 in the state in the top 25 right now. They beat South Warren, which it was, I think they're like at 18 or 19, somewhere in that range, and beat Bowling Green.
Yep.
They are proving that they can beat anybody.
Yep.
So it's going to be an interesting close to the season. They start district play today.
Yeah, with a fairly young team still, too.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think their leading hitter is a freshman.
Yeah.
Harris, right? Jordan
Yeah.
Harris. He's hitting like over 400.
Yeah.
And the Hyde brothers, Sutton and JP, are juniors. I think Sutton's hitting 396, and Jackson Reese is 355, another junior. So they're young, and their pitching staff is still, you know, they got some youth in that. They got a couple of older ones, seniors, but still, you know, they're 8-9. But I think it's fair to say a deceiving 8-9 with their competition.
Yeah. So it's like I said, they start the district play today. They're playing Warren East today.
2-game series.
Yeah, I like the way they're doing that.
I do too. I do too.
Because if you're not, you know, if a team just has one pitcher, then
it forces you to use your staff.
Yeah. So they'll be at Warren East today and then back home tomorrow against Warren East, and then meanwhile Glasgow's playing home against Allen County today, and they'll play at Allen County tomorrow.
Yeah. Glasgow had a decent week last week. They're 7-10. I know they lost 2 out of 3, but the competition beat South Warren. That's a good win, 9-8. We talked about South Warren's ranked, I think, right?
Yeah.
Lost to Greenwood 3-2 and lost to Bowling Green 14-4. So they did the old Warren County Bowling Green week, but I thought played well. And Austin. Is it Austin Parker? Is that right? Yeah. He's pitching real well. He in the 3-2 loss to Greenwood, he didn't allow any runs. I think his ERA is now under 3 for the year. You know, they're getting their pitching a little bit more under control. I think early in the year they were giving up a lot of runs and so forth, but Zach Poore has 3 homers and 17 RBIs.
Yeah, he hit 2 last week. He hit the one against South Warren, I think it was.
Yeah, hitting 438 for the year. That's good. Weston
Carroll.
Yeah, he's hitting like 434. So, you know, it's now getting time of the year where it's starting to become fun. Once the weather turns, and now you know you've got 15 games on your belt. That's when you probably start to see a team kind of get in the rhythm. You can start to tell who's going to be pretty good and who's probably not.
Mm-hmm. And then on the softball side, Barron County picked up 3 wins last week? 4 wins last week.
Butler County 16-6, Cumberland County 13-12, shut out Greene County 8-0, beat Southwestern 7-3.
Yeah, those last 2 were played Saturday over at Clinton County.
Yeah, and Katie Elmore and Katie Murphy are both hitting over 500. 509 for Katie Elmore with 2 homers, and Katie Murphy's hitting 571. I think she's recovering quite well from her knee surgery.
Yeah.
And they have a big game tomorrow against Warren East.
Yeah. That's going to be an interesting one because, on the pitching side of things, they've been mixing in Shea Bogue and maybe Gracie Myatt a little bit to go with Chloe Witcher. And
Warren East is still pretty good.
They are. They've had some impressive games. I had no idea how good they would be. I mean, because they lost their coach, but they did have a lot of good players coming back. They didn't have, maybe they only had one senior last year. So, you knew they had a lot of players coming back, but you just never know how that coaching change is going to affect things.
Right, because he coached, Coach McKinney coached basically year-round and started with, like 10 and under travel teams for with Warren. Some of the players he's coached through the years, he's coached them since he's like 6.
Right.
So he had a big thumbprint over the entire softball program, not just at high school.
Yeah, and we may see the effect of that down the road, but obviously the ones that were ready to go in high school are still ready to go.
Yeah.
So it's going to be an interesting game, I think, with them and Warren East tomorrow. And then, right now, Allen County's softball team is kind of like Allen County's girls basketball team to me. I think they're better than their record.
Well, they've had some big injuries, and I'm not for sure if it's one of their pitchers or something else, but I know they've had a key injury or two. But they play Glasgow plays Allen and Warren East this week.
Yeah, they play at Warren East today, and then I guess home against Allen tomorrow.
Right,
I think is what it is.
Right. Glasgow's 1-8. They went 0-2 last week, losing to Grayson 6-3, which Memphis Prophet pitched another good game, only allowed 4 runs, and then lost to Clinton 17-2.
Yeah, the Clinton game, I think Clinton may be surprisingly better than people expect them to be, because we just don't generally think of those 16th district teams a whole lot when it comes to softball or baseball, other than Russell County. But yeah, Clinton is pretty good. I think Coach Messer's daughter pitches, and she does a pretty good job. Daughters, yes, pitch. And
yeah, one's a sophomore, one's an 8th grader.
Yeah, they do a good job. And I tell you what, they hit the ball pretty well, and they're pretty aggressive on the base path, too. I kind of like the way they played. I got to catch some of that game with them in Glasgow on Friday. And Glasgow did not play very well in that game. They had some miscues whenever the ball was in play. They played much better against Grayson County. And actually, the seventh inning, top of the seventh inning of that game might have been a byproduct of, if you're not a program that's used to winning, you kind of sometimes struggle to finish some of those games. And that seemed to be kind of what happened in that game, because it was tied, I think it was tied 2-2. And then Grayson got 4 runs in the top of the 7th. And, it just seemed to be a byproduct of that. But I was encouraged watching them, because they played pretty well overall. Just I didn't think they made many mistakes. Grayson County in that inning put the ball in play, hit some really good balls. So that was kind of the difference in that game. And, hopefully that means they're a little bit closer. You go back to last year when they played Warren East, they had a chance to win that game over at Warren East, the second game they played against them, and had a couple of miscues that let Warren East off the hook in that game. So they've been close. They just haven't gotten over the hump yet in these district games. Meanwhile, though, our friend Peter DiStefano, who was on here a couple of weeks ago, the Governor Lady Colonels, they played 2 games against Fort Campbell on Saturday, and you're talking about finding a way to win a game. They were down 8-3 in the bottom of the 7th inning and scored 6 runs. I mean, basically, they put the ball in play. They just ran the bases. He was happy as a bug in a rug at the end of that game. He was pretty excited for his players. And then the other game, they ended up winning 8-4. 8-4. They called the game because there was a collision in the base paths, and a girl from Fort Campbell got hurt. I think she turned out it was all right, but they just decided to go ahead and call the game because it was a pretty good injury. So pretty significant injury, I should say. And so, but anyway, they picked up 2 wins off of that, and that was good for them.
Yes, absolutely. When you're kind of taking over and just trying to win small victories, whether it's an inning here or a play here, anytime you can get 2 actual W's, you'll take them in a heartbeat. It builds confidence, and it also shows the girls that maybe this guy over here, Coach D, knows what he's talking about.
Yeah, I think they bought in. I think they believe it. Whether they did, if they didn't or not before, they do now, because that was a pretty good day for them. It was one of those, when you want to see these players do well, and they're down 8-3, and you've seen them struggle in other sports, in basketball and in softball in the past years, and they have that moment where they just drop the balls just drop right, and and they're ready to go, and the girl who actually scored the winning run, she just came in to run the bases for that last inning, so she doesn't really play much otherwise at all in the field or in the batting order. So, it means everybody on the team got a part of it. Anything else from the baseball and softball you can think of?
I can't. They're going to get some good weather at least the next 2 days to get some games in. I don't know about the end of the week, but can't ask for better 2 days coming up.
We do also have a tennis match today that might stand out to people. Barron County and Glasgow are playing. They're going to play over at Barron County. I don't know.
That's on hard-court?
Yeah.
Not clay or grass, right?
That's right.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, we're not at the French or Wimbledon.
Okay.
So, we're out there at the U.S. Open. Come on now. All right, this is Brown Sports Bag presented by McDonald's of Glasgow. We'll be right back.
Presented by McDonald's of Glasgow, it's back to the studio with James and John, the Brown Sports Bag.
John, there's one league I don't think we've mentioned once since their season started this year.
What is it?
The NBA. I don't know that we've talked about the NBA season once this whole year. I mean,
no, we have not.
No.
Why would we?
I mean, it's because it has become, as college basketball has become sort of so synonymous with the March Madness, the only thing about the NBA that really matters is the playoffs. Because now they did institute some rules that players had to play a minimum number of games to be eligible for awards and that kind of stuff. And that seems to have had at least some effect, at least from those who just decide to take a break for a month. But, we still so that part's gotten better in terms of turning on the game and knowing who's going to be playing, other than how it had been in the last few years where my son got tickets to go to a game a few years ago, because it was like Dwayne Wade's final year, and so he was going to go watch, and he didn't play in the game. And then, he wasn't even there. And so he was so salty about that.
Well, the other thing that's hurt him is the college game in the last 10 years, I guess. The kids have not stuck around long enough to do the Caitlin Clark effect, where people know them good enough. Hey, that's Christian Leitner. He played 4 years at Duke. I want to see how he does in pros. Because you can't name the players. They're not there long enough.
Yeah.
You're spoiled at Kentucky. You may know them for 6 months.
Right.
But that's not enough to get attached to them.
Yeah.
So, the NBA has lost a whole lot of interest from me personally. And I think it's fair to say viewership has been down too. Mm-hmm. But, their season's ridiculously way too long.
Yeah.
It's just so over the top, too long. 82 games is, they ought to play 50.
Yeah.
But that would cut into their pocketbook, and I understand that. Nobody, I'd hate for somebody instead of getting paid $62 million, only get paid $48 million a year, things like that. But, that's another.
I don't know if the players are concerned about that money. I think that's the ownership side not wanting to cut down on the number of games.
Okay.
Because, the player, a lot of times some of these players say, yes, we play too many games. They've had that discussion, I do believe. Now, they would like to be guaranteed their contracts no matter how many games they play. And I honestly...
Most of them are in the NBA.
Yeah. And so, I honestly think the way what's kind of happening is they had that in-season tournament or whatever that they did.
Yeah.
Which was entertaining, if a little bit gaudy.
The first 3 weeks of the season.
Yeah.
Yeah, they should have had it in February.
Yeah, it was kind of out of the wrong time.
Yeah, wrong time.
But, if you kind of look at it, maybe what they're aiming toward is doing more of these kind of, maybe that in-season tournament and then cutting off some of the back-end games. So some teams may play 82 games and some teams may not, depending on, those games they play, that kind of thing.
I don't know.
I don't know if...
Yeah.
But also that's a thing that might be aimed at an international market, not a domestic market, because, internationally they're used to... international soccer having these kind of odd schedules that we would find weird, that they will play a third of the season and then take a break and go play, World Cup, or they might go play, the European Cup or whatever, these different things that they have. And so an international audience is accustomed to these kind of weird schedules, and we'd be like, what the heck are they doing?
Yeah.
So, it might not appeal to us, but then again, maybe it appeals to a billion other people that we don't know.
Hadn't shown in the ratings yet.
No, but that's only domestic ratings. We wouldn't know what the international ratings are. I mean, because they're not going to be watching them on TV.
It hasn't. Okay, I'll say this: it hasn't showed in the John Butler ratings. How about that? That's the one fact that I can give.
And that's the only one that counts, John.
In my house, though, I've not watched a lot of NBA. I'll just be honest with you.
I did watch.
What I watched in the playoffs, I watched in the playoffs. Number one, there's not a lot of other things on.
Yeah.
And
that does work in their favor.
That does work in their
next
favor.
Month or so.
Yeah, and they do compete.
Mm-hmm.
I wish the series weren't best of seven. After you get in these playoff games, they're all best of seven. It'd be nice to be best of 3, 5, and build up. Then it's really competitive and so forth. Those things would be preferable, and that's what it used to be.
Yeah.
But it's not the way it is right now. TV is. I think they want a game on every night, and, so it is what it is. But I think the first play-in game is tomorrow.
Yeah, they have 2 of them tomorrow night.
Right, Tuesday.
So that's going to be. I know the Lakers are playing. I don't even know. See, here's the deal. I don't even know who is playing in the play-in games because I don't really care about them. I am interested in the series themselves because. I'm with you though. 7 is too much. I liked it whenever they had the 5, at least the 5 in the first round, and then you might have, but you only had really 3 rounds in the championship at that time. So I would prefer some shorter series because that led to some drama through the years that you might miss otherwise.
Correct. Yep.
And the talent level in the NBA at this point is kind of equalized across all the teams to some degree. There are some outstanding players, but like actual role player talent level, there's not really that much of a gap, I don't think, these days.
I don't know. I'll be honest with you. I don't know. I haven't watched enough to tell you. It seems like the best players in the world, the top 5, are European.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the Joker seems to me, what I've seen, still the best player in the world.
Oh yeah.
Giannis of Milwaukee, and the guy at Dallas.
Yeah, Luka Doncic.
Yeah, he averaged 33 and 9 assists and about 8 rebounds.
Yeah,
I mean those are 3 of the top 5 players in the world. Yeah, and you can add the guy from San Antonio eventually.
Yeah, he might be already in the top 5. That guy, Victor Wembanyama.
Yeah,
he has had.
And what's unique about all those European players? They're skilled.
They are indeed.
They're highly skilled.
Yeah. That was, I think we were talking about this during the Summer League when I watched Victor play, and I think the thing I mentioned to you at that time.
He didn't fit in the Summer League where you just go out and just freelance and just throw it up, did he? In fact, He only played like 1 or 2.
Yeah.
He just looked lost. He didn't look lost when it got organized.
No, the one thing about the Summer League that impressed me for a guy his size was he was defending a guard and he stepped on defense. So he was defending left. The guard made a move and he didn't stumble to his right. He just quickly pivoted back to the other side and was able to defend. And I'm like, you just don't see 7'5" people with footwork like that.
Yeah. I
mean, it's one thing to have the ball skills and all that, but we're talking about just the physical skills of not looking like a baby giraffe out there.
Yeah.
And so, look. There have been NBA players who have had hype coming into the league, and you watch them play, and you're like, okay, I don't know exactly what the hype was. LeBron James is one of those that lived up to the hype pretty much immediately. This guy did too. There have not been that many.
Right.
When you get right down to it. I mean, maybe Larry Bird and Magic Johnson did as well.
Right.
But you got a handful of people throughout the history of the NBA who had all this elevated hype, and when they came in the league, you were like, oh, no, they're for real.
Yeah. Well, I'll be following. There's some teams that I like to see Oklahoma City. They're young, very young, play really hard, and there's they're interesting for me to watch. Mm-hmm. Kind of like to see them do well. The Knicks are in it. They're the number 2 seed. They've been forever since, and they're kind of old school approach by a coach who demands people to guard, and he plays his people sometimes 39, 40, 41 minutes a game.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little bit of an old school approach. I'm kind of interested in that, kind of watch that, to be honest with you. LeBron's 40. I mean, it's still amazing how good he is.
Mm-hmm.
Am I interested? Not really, to be honest with you.
No.
I'm just kind of tired of that. It'd be interesting to see how long Golden State can last.
Mm-hmm.
I think their shelf life as champions are over, to be honest with you. They've gotten kind of old. And Curry's still playing at a high level, but his teammates aren't.
Right.
So, I don't know enough to effectively make predictions other than I think Denver, the defending champions, as long as they're healthy and they got the Joker, they're going to be awfully hard to beat.
Yeah, that's me. The one thing I do look forward to about the NBA playoffs, in the part that I probably the only bits that I really tuned into to the regular season was to watch moments of Nikola Jokic do things that you're just like, how can he even see that pass, or how can he make that pass, or how does he? I mean, it's just amazing the way he plays the game mentally.
Correct.
And then physically. And so, that's the thing that's interesting to me in the playoffs. I guess I'm curious to see if the Celtics can actually finish a season, because they've not been able to finish in the playoffs, no matter, every time they've gotten in the playoffs. And, I mean, they're clearly the best team in the Eastern Conference, but you just can't trust them in the playoffs. So, it's curious to see if those guys finally get over the hump.
Yeah, they made a big trade. They got that they got the big 7'2" guy.
Yeah.
I forgot his name. He's really helped. He's very skilled, and they got the guard from Milwaukee. That's a tough kid. Hollywood.
Drew Holiday.
Drew Holiday. I think those two have been really big additions.
Yeah.
It may be enough to get them over the top.
Holiday may have been the bigger addition just because he's such a tough player.
Correct.
And he's such a good defender, and that takes some of the pressure off of Brown and Tatum to defend, the other team's best player. He can do that for them, and that frees him up offensively, obviously, as the game goes along.
Right.
I don't think Milwaukee's much of a threat this year because they've kind of been a train wreck, and Giannis has not really been healthy, I don't think, the whole year.
Don't guard people.
No.
Damian Lillard is just...
He was not a positive addition.
No, I mean, he was, gets paid a ton of money, but he guards nobody.
Right.
And it doesn't look like, to me, it's been helpful at all.
No.
I mean, they've fired their coach in the middle of the season, and their record's been worse since they've done that. I hope they do lose, to be honest with you. They shouldn't have got rid of the first coach.
Yeah.
They run happy with the one that won the who won a championship with them.
Yeah.
They won a championship 2 years ago, I think, and last year they didn't, and they decided to get a new coach, and that hasn't. After a while, when you get rid of the coach that won it for you, and now then you get a new one, fire him in the middle of the season, and you're on another one not doing very well. Maybe it's the players.
Could be. I mean, it might be all the players other than Giannis. And going back to the Drew Holiday.
Maybe it's Giannis too, a little bit.
Well,
I mean, he's done first so many years, and when he was there, he was never complained. Blah blah blah, and all of a sudden, his hands are in coaching changes and everything. He's been Americanized, evidently. He's been in the league so long.
I think the thing that I don't know the guy, and I don't know, but there would be one player that they did lose, and he can look at the Celtics and say what that guy's transformation has been for the Celtics, and that's Drew Holiday.
That's correct.
And he might look around and say, we got rid of the wrong people.
Well, they had to get rid of him to pay for Lillard.
Well, that's right. I mean, maybe that's why Giannis is complaining now, is because he's like, you guys made a bad decision, and now here I am. Maybe he has been Americanized in that sense. So maybe they took him for granted.
Blame somebody, yeah.
Well, yeah. He is a guy. We praised him for sticking it out in Milwaukee when he could have left, and he said he was going to be a Buck forever. And maybe they treated him like they took advantage of that and said, hey, we got him, so now we can do whatever we want. And he's like, wait a minute.
I think it was him that wanted some more help. That's the reason why they went and got Lillard.
Well, I mean, that may be the case, but maybe he wanted more help, but not to lose Drew Holiday.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess if I wanted more help and then you got rid of the one guy who could defend somebody, I might be like, that wasn't actually helpful. Anyway, if I were to make a prediction, I would go with the Celtics and the Nuggets in the finals. Just
chalk.
Yeah, I mean, because both those teams have proven they can get there. Maybe the Heat doesn't shock the world this year.
They don't seem like they have the same vibes this year.
No. And then, you just kind of have to have faith in Jokic because he's just been so good in the last few years.
I have faith in him.
I do too. And so that's my prediction. The rest of it, I guess, doesn't even matter. We'll see what happens when we get to the finals. Oh, and then we also, one last thing, the Pistons were the worst team maybe one of the worst teams in NBA history this year, which was a mind-boggling exercise.
I think they've had the number 1 pick the last 2 years, haven't they?
Yes, they might be the worst
No,
NBA franchise.
San Antonio had
Oh, that's
number
right.
1.
They did. That's right.
Sorry, they had the 2 pick last year.
Yeah, well, and San Antonio did that on purpose. I'm not sure the Pistons are tanking. I think they're just that bad. All right, this is the Brown Sports Bag presented by McDonald's Glasgow. We'll be right back.
Presented by McDonald's of Glasgow, it's back to the studio with James and John, the Brown Sports Bag.
Start this last segment off congratulating Abby Varney. She's been selected to play in the the Kentucky-Ohio All-Star game. It's going to be played at Thomas More University this Saturday. So good for her getting that selection. I don't know, is that a byproduct of being like the regional player for the KABC? Is that how that works out?
I don't know. I know one of them gets you an automatic invite to the Kentucky-Indiana All-Star game.
Okay.
I don't know if this does or not.
Got you. I wasn't sure. One of them used to have a tryout, but I don't know if they do the tryout anymore.
Kentucky-Indiana All-Stars used to have tryouts.
Okay,
they did.
But they don't. Do
I
they
don't
not
know.
do that anymore?
I don't know. When Patrica was on it, there was a tryout.
Yeah, because that was also.
It used to be a 2-day tryout because I used to. I've had a couple that had to go that went to these tryouts. I used to have them at Georgetown.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because David Bird had to go to a tryout.
It was a Friday, Saturday deal. Yeah, but I don't know if they do it. I know it's not 2 days anymore.
Yeah, I did not see anything on a tryout, so maybe it's just a.
I don't think there's not a tryout for the Kentucky Ohio one. I know
Okay.
that. Yeah.
So they just say, "Hey, do you want to come
You're
play
invited,
in it?"
yeah.
And then you say yes or no, I
Right.
guess. Because I think in a few years we've had some people who have decided not to play in these games. Maybe not so much on the girls' side, more on the boys' side, maybe. But I don't remember exactly what is it. Is the Indiana one? Is that one in June?
Mm-hmm.
Is it after the school year?
It's in June.
Okay, so maybe that's the one where I've seen some people opt out of it because they're going to go ahead and go to college and get ready. Or
Yeah,
whatever.
that's a recent deal.
Yeah. Okay. So, I guess we'll see. I mean, she's one of the. I think there's 12 players on the Kentucky team.
I don't know. Yeah, I have no idea. I can't imagine being more than 12.
Yeah.
Because it's hard to get trying to divvy up the playing time. But we wish her the best. When we last saw her, she showed tremendous courage after getting her nose broke.
Yeah.
In the district tournament and showing incredible courage coming back in and trying to finish that game. So, it's good exposure. I'm sure there'll be some college people there that are watching and so forth. So, we wish her the best.
Yeah. And then one of your favorite sporting events of the year was this past weekend, the Masters. Did you watch it?
I did. I couldn't be there on Saturday, but I taped it and watched it Saturday night and so forth, and watched it Sunday. Yeah, I enjoy it. And I especially like it when it's difficult. Mm-hmm. I always like the U.S. Open the best because the scores, they make those courses so hard. I like to see really good players struggle. I like to see it. And Friday, the winds were like 40 miles an hour. I mean, it was brutal. But it was fun. And Scotty Scheffler, turned out he's the best player in the world. Mm-hmm. He's won 3 of his last 4 tournaments. And this was his 3rd major, 2 Masters, and won another one. I think it's a U.S. Open or something. But he was, he's a tremendous player. And young, too, just 26.
Yeah, I mean, he's kind of I don't know if he's an heir apparent to anything because there's been such a gap between the time when Tiger Woods was a dominant player. And in between, we've had some people kind of came and went, but nobody really had any longevity, I guess. So maybe Scotty Scheffler's been the most consistent winner in these majors in the recent years, or a competitor, I suppose. I mean, is there anybody else that's been close to that consistency?
Well, I mean, Jordan Spieth went on a roll there.
That's true.
He won like 3 majors pretty quickly, and McIlroy's been consistent and so forth. But yeah, I think what makes Scheffler so good is his consistency. Man, he is so accurate with his drives and with his iron play is unbelievable. And when he putts good, he's pretty hard to beat.
Yeah. I guess maybe this signals the end of Tiger Woods being any kind of thought or threat in a major. I mean, he finished.
Oh yeah, no, he has. He's not a threat anymore for sure. I mean, it's made the cut, which give him credit,
Mm-hmm.
but he finished last.
Right.
Just the last accident in which he had the wreck, almost lost his leg. Looks like just complete. When you have ACL surgeries and you have 2 back surgeries, and then you basically have to repair a leg that was almost broken off.
Mm-hmm.
He just doesn't have the flexibility anymore, and it's just hard to play. It's hard to win when you're only playing in majors and maybe one other tournament. It's kind of hard to get really good when you only play 4 or 5 times a year.
Yeah.
So he's handled it well, to be honest with you. He's turned much more into a sympathetic figure. He's not the giant personality in which he was dominating anymore. He's more sympathetic and so forth, but he also seems to handle things a lot better now than he used to.
Mm-hmm. And I guess, what I find interesting is you still have people who are like, before every major tournament, whenever Tiger Woods is going to be in it, they're like, oh, this is going to be the one where he makes his comeback and all that. And I just feel like we mentioned LeBron in the prior segment, at 40 years old, still playing at the level he is.
LeBron's playing at a totally different level than Tiger. They're not even in the atmosphere. And
that's what I'm saying. And then Tom Brady finished off his career, had a good run down at the end. He was at the top, and maybe it gives us this false sense that these people have a second life at some point in time. But it just feels like physically too much has happened to Tiger Woods.
That's what it
really
is.
To do it.
It's just physically. It's not playing golf. He still should be, without all that other stuff. He still could be at the top of his game, but no longer. It's just way too many surgeries.
Yeah. Last week, we didn't really get a chance to talk about this. I had it on the end of the show, and I was going to talk about WKU baseball because I thought my son was going to be here, and he runs the board for the games over in Bowling Green. And then last weekend, they won a series against Dallas Baptist, which was ranked number 8, I think, going into that series.
Right.
And I've just been impressed.
Beat Louisville Tuesday.
Yeah, I've just been impressed with the quality of that program at this point because there was really kind of they didn't have any local players with the prior coach, and they weren't playing well. Their pitching was never very good. They'd have a couple of players that were pretty good, but they were just not a very good program, to be honest. This guy's done quite a job turning this program around.
Yes, I'd be interested to see how long they can keep him. But he brings in a lot of players, though. You're talking about using the transfer portal.
Yeah.
I think they brought in like 25.
Yeah, each year. I think the first year he had like 21 that came in.
He turns the roster open a lot. But, they're really good. It's hard to tell. You just take WK off their jersey and you take, LSU off theirs. You just put both teams out there with blank jerseys. It's kind of hard to tell the difference, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
He's done a really good job.
I don't know what you mentioned bringing in the players, and I don't know what his targets are for what he wants out of his players, but he obviously has a clear idea of what a winning baseball player is.
I always felt like, and I think it's proven pretty accurate in most sports, wherever I'm coaching, if I'm going to get a transfer, I would prefer somebody that's transferring up rather than down.
Yes.
Because when you're transferring up, it just seems like those people are hungrier for, I've made it at the junior college, let's go to D1 Western, blah, 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 or a lower D1 Western. I like that than it may be a player that's transferring. Was at LSU, blah, 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 and transferring down. I just they both may work, but personally it just seems like to me the one that transfers up is more successful oftentimes.
Well, also, maybe it's like this. If you are transferring up, you are reaching the peak of your potential at the time that you're showing up at WKU, so to speak. If you're leaving LSU...
And you still think you have other things to prove.
Yes. But if you're leaving LSU, you obviously were not capable of playing at LSU.
Or unhappy or this or that. There could be all kinds of things.
So you may still be a good player, but maybe you don't. Maybe you've lost that fire. Maybe you've lost that edge that you had because you just have a different frame of mind about things.
Yeah, it's possible. But no question, they have done a really good job at Western.
Yeah. And I don't know. The pitching's been sound, but I tell you another thing. You talked about winning the Louisville game. One of the things they've gotten really good at is scrapping out wins. They find ways to win games, which is a thing that in college baseball seems to be the most critical thing. You can have a hitter, you can have a pitcher, but because your pitchers aren't going to pitch, they may pitch 4 innings, 5 innings a lot of times. Maybe they get to 6. They don't. they usually wind up pitching, especially in a series. I mean, you might have to have several people who will pitch.
Right.
So your lineup has got to be one that has a way to manufacture runs because you're not going to win all these games through pitching.
Correct.
And so, it's kind of fascinating. That seems to be one of the things, prior in the program they didn't do. They found ways to kind of lose games prior to this guy out there.
You need to be good at stealing bases, bunting, and things like that. A lot of those little intangibles, fundamentals, probably contribute to some more wins than people kind of think. Because you're right, you got to manufacture some more wins in college.
All right, Sports Bag presented by McDonald's of Glasgow. We'll be back next week.
Thanks for listening, and be sure and join James and John once again next Monday at 4 for the Brown Sports Bag, a local weekly sports machine presented by McDonald's of Glasgow.
Coming soon to your FM dial, this is Fox Sports Radio, WCDS Glasgow, AM 1230.